Welcome back to Wendy's Way. We're continuing our journey in food in the kitchen today, and I am going to create for a family supper tonight an impromptu chicken and rice soup. It's not something I've made before, but I just like to create things. I'm an off-the-cuff, no recipe book kind of cook. When it comes to baking, canning, things like that, I find it necessary to follow a recipe if it's a pastry or a dessert or something where there's a little more science to the fact that, the crust has to bake, or, you need a real specific amount of liquid or leavening or something like that. But when it comes to your average meal, I just cook whatever I have, and, I rarely get complaints. So, for supper tonight, for the family, I'm going to make a chicken and rice soup. Not exactly sure what I'm going to use for seasonings yet, but I'll probably just throw in some salt, maybe some Italian seasoning, something like that. But I'm going to show you the basics. I'm going to use 2 pints of canned chicken. Now this is chicken that I canned. I buy boneless, skinless chicken breasts, and I chunk it up, and I use the raw pack method of canning. And if you look through my food playlist, you will find canning chicken. I will attempt to link the videos within this video for canned chicken. I'm going to use 2 pints. I'm going to use a quart of canned poblano peppers. These were just canned in water. Just sliced them up. I did get rid of most of the seeds on the poblanos. They are a little stronger pepper flavor than a green bell pepper, but not a lot. They add color and some flavor to your recipes. I'm going to use some chicken base, which is just kind of like a chicken stock that you've seen. And I'm going to use a couple of cans of a creamy soup. This time, don't tell Dad, cream of asparagus. He's on a blood thinner where you're not supposed to eat consistently large volumes of dark green vegetables because they have vitamin K. I think in a creamy soup like this, the amount of asparagus is pretty negligible. And we're going to be splitting it amongst half a dozen people, so pretty sure he'll be safe. Anyway, I'm also going to use a quick rice. And when I cook rice, I use even amounts of rice and liquid. Typically it's water, sometimes it's broth. So rather than just putting 2 cups of water in the crock with the rice to know that I'll have enough liquid to suck it up, I'm first gonna drain these jars of chicken and peppers so that the fluid that came from the chicken and that the pepper cooked in the canning jar is going to be a portion of the 2 cups of fluid that I'm going to dissolve the chicken stock in, and that I know will give enough liquid in the crock to cook the minute rice, because I'm going to put it in raw. If it's going to be in the crock for hours, why on earth would I waste 8 minutes in a microwave to cook it prior to putting it in the crock pot? Let it all soak up all these flavors together. So I'm going to measure that out and heat it up and get it all mixed up in my red bowl. I have these, cheap red mixing bowls, but I've proven to myself that if I fill the cheap red mixing bowl up to the line, that is a full crock pot. so I can gauge myself and not have to actually mix things up in the crock pot and chance making a mess, which I am incredibly prone to do. So please stick with me and I'll show you more on my impromptu chicken and rice soup. Alrighty, getting ready to throw my soup together, and I just wanted to share with you, like I said, I drained my chicken and my peppers into a measuring cup, and I ended up with 4 cups of liquid, just shy of 4 cups of liquid. So I added just enough water to bring it up to 4 cups. I microwaved it for 1.5 minutes just to warm it up so that I could pour the chicken base, the powdered chicken base, into it and it would dissolve. I ended up with right at 1/2 cup of the powdered chicken base. And so I have that sitting by. It's green. It's gonna be pretty. All that pepper water. When it comes to canned chicken, another thing that I know I've shared on other videos, but I use my carving fork, my Rated Cutlery carving fork, because when you can chicken, it cooks at a very high temperature for a very long time under pressure. And it gets all, chunked together, basically. But I like it more shredded in my chicken soup. So I simply take my carving fork and I poke it down through the chicken and I turn it. And in effect, I am shredding the chicken. This works for any kind of meat that you can, as long as it's not bone in, obviously. But, I'll do this with canned pork and then, cover it in barbecue sauce. So we did that. Watch me get it all over. And we'll put that in the bowl. One thing about cleaning the jars when you can meat, you're going to want to soak it for a good long time. And you may even want to put some vinegar in the water. Even on the heavy pot and pan setting in my dishwasher, there's a lot of this white proteiny tissue left over from the meat that does not come out in the wash. Granted, my dishwasher's not the best, but, and especially even if you're going to hand wash, it's just so much easier to get them clean if you've soaked them first, and preferably with a little vinegar. Then you'll get your jars clean to use them again. So I've got that one. I'll use the other one. Also, I did put in a good teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt and some dried basil. Last summer, a friend of mine blessed me with a grocery bag packed with fresh basil that someone had just picked that day, and they were looking for a home for it. So I brought it home and I put it in my dehydrator, and this jar was over full when it was done. But like I say, Lungisi loves his herbs and spices. But I put in 2 teaspoons of this, I guess you'd call it organic. It was just garden grown, dehydrated, nothing added, crumbled with my fingers, dried basil. All right, and the peppers were in such big pieces that I just laid them out on a cutting board and chopped them down into more bite-sized pieces. Need to get that over the board because they're still leaking too, or over the bowl. Throw them in. Alrighty. I'm gonna finish with prepping the rest of my ingredients. I'll get them in the bowl and show you what it looks like when we get it in the crock. Alrighty then. That's what it looks like. My crock isn't full, and we're having 6 at the table for supper, but we're also having probably salad and bread and dessert, and heaven knows that there isn't one of us sitting at the table that really needs to overeat. Don't take offense, family. But this is how we roll. We're going to have some chicken rice soup, and I'll show you what it looks like at supper time. Alrighty. I have to tell you, I had to add 6 cups of water to make this thin enough to be called a soup. You know, I had put in enough liquid, I thought. I knew that it would cook the rice, but I thought there'd be enough liquid to make soup out of it. I was wrong. You know, it cooked up the rice, and when I came and stirred it, it was like casserole. You know, it wasn't like soup. And I've put in so much of that chicken base for flavor and everything else that there was plenty of flavor in it, so that adding an entire, 6 cups of water I added. And it is still, oh, it's so flavorful. Now we're going to let it go a little bit longer, but now we've got us some soup and we've got a full crock. Things just happen the way they're meant to, don't they? Now, to finish the video about the chicken and rice soup. You know, you have to admit when you do well and admit when you fail. The chicken and rice soup, even after I added the 6 cups of water and it looked as if it were going to actually be soup, by the time it was supper time and I went to serve it, the rice had sucked up that extra 6 cups of water and it was still like casserole. And because of all the liquid from the poblano peppers and the poblano peppers themselves and the amount of chicken base that I had used, it was really strong, peppery, salty strong even. I have leftover, lots of leftover in my refrigerator, and I'm trying to decide, you know, how not to waste it because it was just too pungent. So I'm thinking about putting it into a pot and maybe adding either a bunch of milk or heavy cream. And once I've got it blended really well, and I know that it's going to be more of a soup consistency, and dial back the flavor that's too strong, then maybe portion it out and freeze it in portions to be eaten later. So that's my goal. So I have to admit to you that sometimes when I just decide to throw things together, it fails. Not often, but every now and then. So I thank you for joining me anyway. And hopefully you can learn along with me as we explore our journey in food. I thank you for joining me again at Wendy's Way. May the good Lord who blesses me each and every day of my life bless you as well, today and always. Amen.